Um, Imagine for a second that your business completely fails tomorrow,
Mm.
or, your long-term partner suddenly leaves you, or the economy just totally collapses.
Which is a pretty stressful thought right off the bat.
Right. Completely terrifying. But what if the ultimate literal secret to maintaining absolute peace of mind in that exact moment is to simply look at the chaos and say, none of this concerns me because I do not actually exist?
Yeah, it sounds jarring. I mean, maybe even a little absurd at first glance.
Totally.
But that specific radical detachment is actually the summit of a very intricate philosophical roadmap we are exploring today. We are taking a deep dive into a fascinating stack of texts written in 2008 by an author named Xuefeng.
And the mission here is wild.
It really is. The entire mission of these texts is to present a grand hierarchy of human consciousness. The author makes the case that the only way to genuinely escape the endless friction and suffering of our daily lives is to learn how to mentally return to zero.
Return to zero.
Right.
Yeah. And he connects quantum physics, Buddhist philosophy, and very mundane daily human interactions into one unified theory.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core premise that immediately hooked me is the idea that your life level, like the literal reality you get to experience every day, is entirely dictated by the way you think.
Exactly. It's not about circumstances.
Right. It's not about where you were born or how much money you have. If you are stressed out about a looming deadline at work or anxious about the state of the world, this text basically argues that it's just a symptom of your current level of thinking. It's offering what feels like a cheat code to reality.
And to use that cheat code, the text insists we first have to understand the landscape. I mean, the author builds this escalator of consciousness.
An escalator, yeah, I like that.
He maps out 8 distinct levels of thinking, and your position on this escalator dictates exactly how much suffering you experience.
Right. And he categorizes different types of people into these levels. I know we're aiming for the upper tiers today, but what does the bottom of this escalator actually look like? Just to orient everyone.
So at the very base, level 1, we have material thinking. The author argues this is where the vast majority of ordinary people operate.
The day-to-day grind.
Yeah, they are completely bound by what they can physically see, touch, and acquire. Then, moving up, level 2 is image thinking.
Which belongs to artists and writers.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can conceptualize beyond the immediate physical world.
You got it. And level 3 is associative thinking. That's where the scientists sit.
And this is where the hierarchy gets really interesting to me. So scientists are at level 3, but later on, it puts mystics and wizards at level 5 with visualized thinking.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
Why does the author rank a mystic higher than a quantum physicist? I mean, that feels counterintuitive.
It's all because of the mechanism of how they think. A scientist, in this framework, relies on associative thinking. They need existing data points, existing laws of physics, to connect the dots.
So they're still bound by the rules of the sandbox.
Exactly. A mystic, however, using visualized thinking, can conceptualize things completely outside the known physical parameters.
Oh, wow. Okay. And who's in between them at level 4?
Level 4 is illusory thinking, reserved for religious followers who rely on faith in the unseen. And then, jumping above the mystics, at level 6 is Tai Chi thinking.
For the sages.
Yeah.
The ones who understand the flow of opposites.
Right. Which brings us to the real meat of our deep dive, level 7.
Formless thinking.
Yes. The realm of bodhisattvas and Buddhas. And according to the text, this is the very first level where you actually break free from the matrix.
But to understand formless thinking, we really have to define what the author means by a form. Because he is not just talking about physical shapes, is he?
Not at all. I mean, the author uses a radically expansive definition of a form. Yes, a table, a car, a house, those are forms.
The physical stuff you can bump into.
Right. But a form is also any law, rule, or defined principle discovered by humans. In Buddhist terminology, these are called the characteristics of Dharma. It means any structured concept you hold in your mind to make sense of the world.
Okay, wait. Does that mean abstract concepts are forms too? Like if I spend years meditating to achieve a state of total emptiness, is that emptiness a form?
The author would argue that it absolutely is.
Wait, really?
Yeah. If you are fixated on the concept of being detached, your mind is still grasping onto a structured idea. The text refers to this trap as the characteristics of non-dharma.
So you've just traded a physical form for a philosophical one.
Exactly. Formless thinking requires not relying on any appearances or concepts. You have to move completely beyond color, sound, rules, doctrines, and even the intellectual concept of nothingness.
The analogy that popped into my head when reading this was a computer's operating system.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, forms are the user interface. They are the shiny app icons, the folders, the mouse cursor. They are the things we click on to navigate our day because they make the computer usable.
Right. They give us a way to interact.
Yeah. But formless thinking is like ignoring the beautiful user interface entirely and reading the raw, underlined binary code. You aren't distracted by the pretty icons anymore. You're seeing the absolute fundamental architecture beneath it.
That's a great way to put it. And the text uses a specific term for this, actually. Seeing the Tathagata.
Tathagata, meaning the true nature of things.
Right. Seeing the true fundamental natures things as they actually are, devoid of the labels human beings slap onto them. And the reason the author is so adamant about stripping away that user interface is because relying on forms is incredibly dangerous.
Dangerous how, though? I mean, if the user interface makes my life easier, why shouldn't I just use it?
Because the hardware running that interface is constantly mutating. The space-time we live in is in a relentless state of transformation. The texts point out that 64 cosmic factors are constantly grinding against each other.
64 of them, just constantly churning.
Yeah, and they create unpredictable shifts at every single moment.
It's the tragedy of clinging. I mean, the author brings up these really vivid, poignant examples of why clinging to a form basically guarantees pain.
He really goes in on this.
He writes about how a massive, seemingly invincible superpower, like the Soviet Union, existed yesterday, but is just gone today.
Right, it just vanishes.
Or on a smaller scale, a deeply fragrant, perfect meal that brings you immense joy today will literally rot, sour, and spoil by tomorrow. If you attach your happiness to the form of that fresh meal, you are going to suffer when those 64 cosmic factors inevitably turn it to mush.
What's fascinating here is how the author applies this universal impermanence to human culture and morality. The text argues that clinging to old rules in a new time period is a primary generator of human suffering.
Yeah, he uses a really intense historical example for this.
He does. He points specifically to the historical practice of the 3-inch golden lotus, which was foot binding in ancient China.
That is a brutal example, but it honestly makes the point perfectly.
In its specific time and space, that cultural form was praised. It was considered beautiful, appropriate, and necessary for a good life. But the space-time shifted, the culture transformed.
And today, that exact same form is recognized universally as a symbol of profound suffering and foolishness.
Exactly. The physical act didn't change. The universe around it did.
And this leads the author to take a pretty controversial stance. He argues that because absolutely everything is impermanent, even our most revered sacred texts struggle to guide reality once space and time have shifted away from their origins.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back there.
No, he explicitly names the Bible, the Quran, the Diamond Sutra, and the Tao Te Ching. He suggests that applying ancient teachings rigidly to modern actions is a recipe for hardship.
Which is definitely a bold claim.
And just to be clear to you listening, we aren't taking the theological side here. We are just impartially reporting the author's logic. But his logic raises a massive red flag for me.
Oh, what's the red flag?
Well, if absolutely everything is impermanent, and even ancient wisdom comes with an expiration date, where does the author say we can actually find solid ground?
The author's solution is that you can't find solid ground by looking at the surface. Observing the myriad of forms, whether they are cultural rules, religious doctrines, or physical objects, will never reveal the fundamental truth.
So you just have to drop them all.
Yes. The only way to find constancy, the only way to stop slipping on the changing landscape, is to clear all forms from your consciousness entirely. You have to locate the absolute baseline of the universe.
Okay, so if clearing all forms is the goal, what does that baseline actually look like? Because the text takes a massive pivot here into mathematics and physics.
It's a huge pivot.
Yeah, the author isn't just saying nothingness is a nice spiritual idea. He argues it is mathematically baked into the literal physics of our reality.
He builds a fascinating bridge between quantum mechanics and this formless state. He asserts that the universe operates on a fundamental math equation, which is 1 + 1 = 0.
Right. He drops these wild mathematical assertions. He writes that when a particle and an antiparticle collide, they don't just bounce off each other, they annihilate to become zero.
Which is true in physics.
Yeah. And he claims that the total aggregated energy of the entire universe is precisely zero. He even maps out a cosmology where there is a hub of 24 parallel worlds that equals zero. And among the 36 dimensions of space, there's a literal zero world.
To understand why he uses these specific dimensional structures, we have to look at his concept of the universe's balancing mechanism. Zero in this text isn't just an empty void, it is a state of perfect, harmonious tension.
Like a pendulum, perhaps.
Exactly. Everything in our visible reality swings like a pendulum around this center point of zero.
So the pendulum swings into the positive, and then it inevitably has to swing back into the negative.
It's the exact opposite of chaos. The text argues that when phenomena overstep their natural limits, the universe's balancing mechanism forces an event to restore equilibrium back to zero. He uses human demographics as an example, the balance of male and female ratios. The baseline is centered around zero. If one side drastically outweighs the other, the author suggests the universe will inevitably trigger a correction to restore that zero state.
It's almost as if nature has a built-in immune system against extremes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text is essentially taking the ancient Taiji principle, the concept of yin and yang, and explaining its underlying engine.
Oh, I see.
The dazzling, overwhelming variety of life we see around us isn't random. It is simply the Taiji principle expressing itself in a constant cyclical movement around that zero point.
You know, I was really trying to wrap my head around this 1 + 1 = 0 concept, and I realized it's exactly how noise-canceling headphones work.
Oh, that's a brilliant comparison.
Right. If you are sitting on an airplane and there is a chaotic, deafening roar from the engines, let's call that sound wave a positive one, how do you achieve silence? You don't try to build a massive physical wall to block the sound.
No, you fight the wave with the wave.
Exactly. The headphones use a microphone to listen to that positive wave, and then they generate an exact inverted sound wave, a negative one. The two waves collide in your ear, they annihilate each other, and you are left with absolute, pristine silence. 1 + 1 = 0.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. You are using the properties of the wave itself to cancel out the disturbance. The author uses a theatrical metaphor to make a similar point.
Oh, about the actors.
Yeah. He argues that most people go through life as mere actors. They are trapped reacting to a script they didn't write, dwelling in what he calls the realm of necessity. They suffer because they think the stage props, the forms, are real.
But when you understand the math of zero, you stop being the actor and you become the director.
The director understands the whole set. They aren't terrified by the script's drama because they know the swords are dull and the walls are made of cardboard. They live in the realm of freedom.
They see how the positive ones and negative ones interact.
Exactly. The author compares it to looking into a kaleidoscope. To an untrained eye, the patterns are dizzying, infinitely complex, and overwhelming. But once you realize it's just a few simple pieces of colored glass reflecting off mirrors, you aren't overwhelmed by the illusion anymore. You see the essence.
Okay, so conceptually that's brilliant. Understanding the math of the universe and nodding along to kaleidoscope analogies is great. But the text makes a very sharp point. Simply knowing this intellectually has absolutely no practical value unless it is applied.
Right. Theory versus practice.
It's like reading a physics textbook on how a bicycle stays upright through gyroscopic force. I mean, it doesn't mean you won't immediately fall off when you actually try to pedal. So how do you and I actually experience this zero state in our stressful everyday lives?
The author is surprisingly pragmatic about this. He outlines 3 specific gateways, 3 paths to temporarily experience this formless state, which he refers to as the Elysium world or the land of the Buddha.
Let's break those 3 paths down because the variety here is wild. The first path is through the immensity of nature.
Yeah.
He describes the act of standing in a vast, endless desert, or staring at the grand, roaring waterfalls at the Canada-U.S. border, or the massive falls at the Zimbabwe-Zambia border.
The mechanism here is scale. When you are confronted with the overwhelming, terrifying magnitude of nature, your mind simply cannot maintain its grip on its petty, everyday forms.
It's just too big to care about your inbox.
Exactly. Your anxieties about an email or a car payment dissolve because the environment forces you into a state of awe. You forget your own existence, and for a moment, you return to zero.
The second path he describes is, well, it's a surprising inclusion for a dense philosophical text. The second path is through sexual climax.
Yeah, it definitely catches the reader off guard, but the author's logic is entirely consistent with his thesis on ego dissolution.
How so?
He frames this purely around the temporary destruction of the self. He describes it as a fleeting moment where an individual momentarily disregards the existence of the other person and completely forgets themselves.
Just total immersion in the feeling.
Right. In that state of pure ecstasy, The heavy, rigid burden of the ego vanishes. You leave the mind behind without concern for what usually seems so important. For that brief instant, you experience formless bliss.
Wow, okay. And the third path is far more traditional for this genre, which is meditation. Specifically, he points to advanced practices, like his own group's transcendence from the physical body meditation method.
It's quite a title.
It is. When a practitioner hits the fourth or fifth stages of this deep meditation, they can manually trigger that feeling of the Elysium world.
But the text immediately drops a reality check here.
Right, because you can't just stay there.
Exactly. It acknowledges that these three methods, staring at a waterfall, physical intimacy, and deep meditation, are inherently fleeting. They are temporary flashes of the zero state. You can't live at the bottom of Niagara Falls forever. So to make this a permanent state of being, you have to adopt an overarching philosophy for daily life.
Right, the ultimate life hack of formless thinking.
Yeah.
The author says you have to embrace a very specific mantra, which is, none of this concerns me.
Yes.
You literally have to train your brain to step aside and imagine that you do not exist.
The list of scenarios he provides for this mantra is really intense. He writes that whether the heavens themselves collapse, whether businesses fail, whether the global economy declines, whether a spouse starts an affair, or whether people are stealing and fighting in the streets, your internal response must always be the same.
None of this concerns me.
Yes.
And this is where I really found myself pushing back against the source material. Because when I read that list, my immediate reaction was, I mean, isn't that just extreme toxic apathy?
That's a very common reaction.
Like, if the economy tanks and people are starving, or if someone I love deeply betrays me, and my response is just, I don't care, I don't exist, that feels like an incredibly elaborate philosophical way to dissociate and run away from your problems. How is that enlightened?
It is a vital critique, and the text actually anticipates that exact reaction.
Really? How does it defend it?
The author tries to draw a very fine line to clarify that formless thinking is not a dark, uncaring nihilism. It is meant to be radical emotional freedom. He explicitly writes this clarifying rule. He says, if it's interesting, I'll join in. If not, I return to zero.
If it's interesting, I'll join in. Okay, that totally reframes it.
It fundamentally changes the context from apathy to autonomy. You aren't dead to the world. You actively emerge from the zero state to experience joy, to appreciate art, to love, to feel the sunshine.
You play in the sandbox.
Yes. You participate fully in the positive, harmonious swings of the pendulum. But, and this is the key, when the negative swings come crashing back, when there are insults, poverty, drama, failure, or societal collapse, you do not let it shatter your inner architecture.
You just return to zero.
You drop the form. You become shapeless like water.
You let the negative wave pass right through you because there is no rigid ego driven you there to take the damage. The text has this wonderful, almost playful line. Others may fight, I don't fight. Others may covet, I don't covet. If it's amusing, I appear. If it's troubling, I disappear.
It's very poetic.
It treats the intense, high-stakes drama of human life like a movie playing on the screen. You can eat popcorn and enjoy the movie, you can even cry at the sad parts, but you never genuinely believe you are the character getting chased by the monster.
That is the essence of formless thinking. You step outside the three realms and beyond the five elements. You accept that the fundamental nature of the universe is zero, and by intentionally returning to zero in your own mind, you align yourself with eternity.
Because you don't aggressively possess anything, you cannot actually lose anything.
Exactly. You are entirely empty, and yet through that emptiness, you possess the whole universe.
What a massive paradigm shift. Just thinking back on the journey of this text, we started way down in the mud with level 1 material thinking. Down there, we are desperately clinging to forms.
Holding on for dear life.
We are white-knuckling our rules, our relationships, our bank accounts, while the 64 cosmic factors of the universe constantly pull a rug out from under us with relentless impermanence.
And all our suffering comes from fighting that impermanence.
Exactly. And the roadmap offers a way out. Climb the ladder to formless thinking. Recognize the universal math that 1 + 1 = 0.
Yeah.
Realize, whether through nature, intimacy, or meditation, that the ego can be dissolved.
And then bring it into everyday life.
Yes, adopt that return to zero mindset in traffic, at work, or during a crisis. Deciding that the world's endless drama fundamentally does not concern you is a wildly liberating way to defang a stressful day.
It provides an incredibly potent tool for resilience. But astute listeners who have been tracking our progress on the author's hierarchy might have noticed a glaring omission in our discussion today.
Ah, yes. The cliffhanger. the elephant in the room.
We spent this entire deep dive unpacking level 7 formless thinking. But at the very beginning, we clearly noted there is an 8th level at the absolute peak of the author's hierarchy.
Holographic thinking.
Yes, holographic thinking, the realm of gods and the greatest creator.
So what does the author actually say about holographic thinking? What is the final secret?
Absolutely nothing.
Right. The text takes this sharp, incredibly mysterious turn right at the end. The author outright refuses to explain the final step.
It's quite the move.
He claims that holographic thinking is the ultimate hidden mystery of creation, and that if you were to actually write down the secrets of it, it would violently disrupt the yin and yang balance of the entire cosmos.
The author claims that anyone who discloses those specific divine structural secrets becomes the universe's greatest sinner and will invite utter destruction upon themselves.
Which is an amazing disclaimer.
He backs this up by pointing to historical spiritual figures. He notes that Jesus only spoke in parables to hide the specific truth, that Buddha deliberately left the ultimate reality unspoken, and that Laozi danced around the edges of it in the Tao Te Ching without ever breaking through the final veil.
So the author just stops dead at level 7. The listener is left to try and discover that final cosmic 8th step entirely on their own.
Talk about an abrupt exit.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, mastering level 7 and learning to return to 0 gives us plenty of philosophical heavy lifting to do for now.
It absolutely does. And before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final concept to mull over, something that builds directly off the physics of the author's worldview.
Alrighty.
The text argues that our entire reality operates as a pendulum, swinging away from 0, and that true lasting peace is only found at that dead center point.
The balancing mechanism that corrects extremes.
Right. So apply that mechanism to your own life. Think about your greatest ambitions and your deepest desires. Think about the last time you chased a massive promotion or extreme wealth or a blindingly intense emotional high. And constantly striving to push your life into those massive positive extremes, are you simply pulling the pendulum further and further back? And if the universe's math always demands balance, does pulling your pendulum that far into the positive essentially wind up the spring for your own future suffering? Is our relentless pursuit of extreme peak happiness actually the very mechanism that guarantees our deepest pain?
Oh, wow. That is a thought that will keep you staring at the ceiling tonight. Or, I suppose, you're practicing formless thinking, you'll just return to 0 and sleep like a baby. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mind. Until next time, keep digging deeper.